I will go with your decision. All right. Wow, that's a full room. We did not expect this, I have to tell you. These guys did not expect so many people to show up. And on a personal note, before I start off blabbering about failing and BSides and communities, I just want to say again, thank you to the organizers here. I've known them for about a year now, give or take. And I can tell you that they worked extremely hard to set this up for you. There have been a lot of emotions around it and efforts, and it's every time that I see a new B-side starting off in a city, I'm amazed at each and every time. Each one is a story of its own. Each one is different personas and technologies and communities. And each time that it happens, it's like, oh my God, it's mind blowing. So I wanted to talk today about failing. And for the rest of the day, you're probably going to hear a lot of really cool stories about your community, about people like us that are taking a big step, standing on this stage. Not like me, I'm just talking about stuff, but they're actually doing research and putting out interesting stuff and telling you about it and educating you. But they didn't get here just by chance. They got here by doing a lot of this. And I think that's one of the most untold stories that don't really get the front stage in our community or even in general. And as someone who's made a career out of failing or failing successfully, I think it's really important to kind of understand that, and that's really a key to having something like this happen. My initial conversations with these guys was like, yeah, we can do a B-sides. We probably can bring like 20, 50 people, something like that. I was like, no. Step it up. It's going to be a lot more. Let's start. My name's Ian. I'm the Chief Security Officer for Simpress. And in my night job or other jobs, I'm also the president of the board of BSides Vegas. We've been doing this for 10 years now. 11? Yeah, we suck at counting, so we're celebrating 10 this year. It's another fail. And there's, my animations suck. Okay. I'm going to kill you for this. We have, we're growing up on a lot of success stories, kind of the heroes of our time, the Jeff Bezos and the Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. And they're like the titans of tech. They're the people who we look up to that have made it, that have started literally with nothing, not like the American version of nothing, really nothing, and set up multi-billion-dollar companies, products that we're all using everywhere, things that are changing our lives. But I want to talk about how they got there and what made them what they are. And it's not really those successes. The successes we celebrate all the time. It's the failures. And as you can see in my own personal failure of not managing my slides, anyone remember the Microsoft Zune? Oh, okay. I was expecting like a younger crowd. That's awesome. Microsoft Zune was Microsoft's attempt to compete with the iPod. I think it even came out before the iPod, if I'm not mistaken. It's a really interesting concept or kind of understanding that this thing preceded the iPod. Coming out first doesn't necessarily mean that this is going to be the successful one. And Microsoft miserably failed with the Zune and is still not in the music industry. They've lost that battle a long time ago. Now it's mostly controlled by Apple, Spotify, and the smaller players. Microsoft is not even playing, not on the hardware side, not on the media side. And that's, again, multi-billion-dollar industry. They had it. They even had like a few versions of it. It was competing head-to-head with an iPod. The market was there. Complete failure. When we look at Apple, Apple even didn't start as a successful company only after a couple of really horrible iterations of really shitty computers. If you remember, this is the Apple II, no, Lisa? Yeah, that's the Lisa. This is the Apple I. Horrible computers. They didn't work. They're ultra expensive. They're really, really bad iterations of a computer. But they needed that failure. They needed to put something out there. They went on a limb and they said, there is nothing right now that fits what we want. Let's build it. They got some feedback, really harsh feedback, trust me. Feedback that, when I'm thinking back about the first days of Apple, that kind of feedback would have crushed most people. And they would just like, you know what, fuck it. You don't want it, don't need it. I'm going to go off, make, big IBM machines. But they didn't. They kept on going and they said, all right, so the one wasn't good. The Lisa is kind of, it's almost there. And then they came up with the Apple II, which blew the market to pieces. Anyone remember this? Phenomenal machine, the Apple Newton. All right, this was before iPhones. This was before iPads. This was before the Palm Pilot. This thing had like handwriting recognition. It was the most sophisticated thing. It preceded its time by a decade at least, if I'm not mistaken. They went out on a limb. They designed a device with a touch screen, with graphics, the size of, a mobile device, like a proper mobile device. The market didn't even know what to do with it. It was just like, what do you want? We're still in the Apple and IBM, like the PC era. And these guys were innovating way beyond their time. And guess what? Disastrous failure. Disastrous. And now every one of us, almost every one of us, holds one of those in their pocket. Whether it's an iPhone or an Android, they've literally paved that way through those horrible business failures. A project like this kills companies, kills them. And this is not about some financial resilience, whiz-bang, like running the numbers. This can kill a company because the amount of resources and the man hours and the money that you put into a project like that to get it into a commercial version is insane. You're betting a company on something like that, and it fails. What do you do now? Windows ME, if we're moving on to Gates, so we're done picking on Steve Jobs. Windows ME, again, colossal failure. Not that the Windows 98 before that was a phenomenal operating system, but you know what? You keep iterating. I talked about the Zune, so we're going to leave it alone. Bezos, I used to work for Amazon. You have no idea how many failed projects, major projects, Amazon allows itself to go through in order to be that hyper-successful company. Amazon Fire Phone, one of the few projects that actually make it out, going through those additional gates that a lot of other projects just stop and kind of recognize the failure there. So by itself, it is a double failure because it failed to stop getting to production where it should have, and then it went into production, went into full failure mode, and Amazon managed to, I don't know, within 6 months, if I'm not mistaken, they've killed it. They were able to make the decision that, again, manufacturing lines, software, hardware, everything that went into this stopped. And they just killed the project. Colossal failure. Guess what? Still one of the most successful companies in the world. I think I've seen a graph of the number of people that work for Amazon. They're topping 600,000 people. Like 600,000 employees. When I got there in 2015, they were at around 230,000 employees. In a year, they hired more than 100,000 employees. Insane numbers. You can't get there without failing on the way. There is no way to do that. If you keep succeeding, it's just not going to work. And we'll skip pets.com because that's really old school. Let's talk about some of our own heroes, like hacker heroes. Anyone recognizes the guy on the left? Mitnick, of course. Anyone recognizes the guy on the right? Not Bunny. No. That's borderline racist, but no, I'm kidding. I was just kidding. Nothing? Thank you. Shimomura. Rings a bell? Starts to ring a bell? All right. Out of these two, who's the more successful hacker? Not famous, successful. You don't want to play? All right. It's the first hour. I'll give it to you. So most people go like, oh my God, Kevin Mitnick. Why is he famous? Because he went to jail. Because he got caught. How does that qualify someone for being our, hacker community hero? Because he got caught by the FBI? Come on. The real story about Kevin Mitnick, and I invite you to Google this and read about it. It's a fascinating story. Is that Kevin got caught because he picked on a guy. He picked on Shimomura. Kevin was having problems because he kept getting traced back to his landline or to the landlines that he was hacking and using, and he decided to go into mobile. And he didn't know shit about mobile. Not that he knew a lot about technology, but he was looking for someone who knew mobile phones and had the right software and the right access, and he found this guy. Shimomura was working as a consultant. Kevin stole software from him, started using it, and Shimomura just went into. Shimomura wasn't really a hacker, but guess what? He was. Deep inside, it's not about what you do, it's about a mindset. And Shimomura went on full-on hacker mode and decided to go after Kevin because now we're talking pride. And you stole my software, now you're using it illegally to do bad stuff. Went after him. All of the forces in the US, all the FBI, the police, MIT, Berkeley, all the universities, Pac Bells, AT&Ts of the world, couldn't catch Mitnick. One person did. Shimomura. He hacked back. That's the first hack back that we know of. Well, there's probably before that, but that's the most famous one. And Shimomura learned along the way, failed a lot of times, and managed to get back and catch Kevin. He was the one that enabled the FBI at the end of the day. He was consulting them eventually, and tracked back Kevin into his location in North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. That's how he got him. These are some more relevant pictures of those two. So this is Shimomura back at his office in California, if I'm not mistaken, when he was working on the Mitnick case back at the time. And this is Kevin in a more natural environment. We talked about Steve Jobs before. The real success of Apple and the real ability to iterate on failure and iterate on products wasn't really Jobs. It was Steve Wozniak. He's the real hacker inside of Apple. He's the real kind of innovator and techie. These are the heroes that we should be talking about when we're talking about successfully failing. Failures of grandeur. Let's talk about how to successfully fail, how to do this correctly. First and foremost, you have to step on a limb. It's about innovation. It's about stepping out of the comfort zone and saying, I am willing to take a risk. And part of it is getting into that mindset of planning to fail. If you start something off with no plans of failure, with no ability to understand, I am taking myself out of a comfort zone, this is not just following instructions one by one, you will never succeed. I love this image. Everyone's like, what the fuck is going on there? Think about it. When you're starting a project and you're not creating failure plans, this is the real fail. When you're doing anything, that has not been done before, at least not by you, make sure to take into account kind of a couple of exit points, all right? What happens if this little cart doesn't have brakes? So I jump out of it at this point. Good idea, before it picks up too much speed. What happens if, I can't break a certain algorithm or get to a point where my memory optimization or, my ROP tricks don't work in this environment? Have a failure plan. If you don't have those, you're just not going to succeed. Deconstructing and building on lessons learned. Think about all the times that you try to attack something, try to learn something new, and you kept running into things that eventually turned out someone else already found. Using other people's lessons and failures is key. Look, guys, I'm lazy. All right, there's no other way to go about it. But I'm using my laziness and convincing myself that there's got to be someone else that did something like that before. I'm only leaving whatever mental and physical energy that I have left to do actual work for things that I'm pretty certain no one did before. For everything else, someone's got to have a solution. So focus your energy on doing things that actually matter. Deconstruct other people's work. Use their failures to plan your own. Failure is the real experience. If you talk to someone who's only had successes, there's nothing to learn. It's like, what did you learn by doing something and it just worked? Is it going to work every time? Are you sure? Is it repeatable? Can it work better? If you do something and you're just like, all right, that's it, done, you've done nothing. It's like, gee, thanks. Nothing to learn from here. Let's get a little personal, because people are like, oh, you're standing on stage, you're keynoting. No. Let's talk about some real visceral failures. This is a cool story. When I was starting off doing red teaming, and this fits perfectly because yesterday we're sitting around picking locks, and everyone's like, there's this big monstrous master lock, yellow, the yellow, that no one managed to pick. And everyone's like, it doesn't work. And I'm talking, picking up the lock, talking to some of my colleagues, and I'm starting to pick at it because it's fun. And I popped it. I picked it. And suddenly everyone just stops and goes like, did you just pick that lock? I was like, yeah, of course. I didn't get good at picking just out of the blue. I actually really sucked at it. And one of my first red team engagements where I had a physical element sewn into the engagement, I managed to, first of all, convince myself to sell something that really didn't exist. My skill sets were not set up to do any kind of physical, like lockpicking testing in a real environment that is not this one lock that I practiced on. And I found myself at an office building after I somehow brilliantly managed to lock myself in a conference room. I spent a couple of hours there, as under the guise of a guest. I'm inside, I'm hooking up to like the AV systems, I'm hopping, I'm pivoting inside the network, everything's going fine, I'm getting data, I'm doing like hopping on voice over IP networks, everything's great. At some point, someone comes in, apparently the room wasn't booked anymore, someone comes in, opens the door a little bit, peeks inside, I'm kind of cowering in the corner, they don't see me, they close the door, lock it, walk away. It's 4:30, it's like a semi-public company, so by 5, everyone's gone. And I'm like starting to realize, oh shit, this is it. I'm locked inside. I spent the next 45 minutes, sweating bullets, trying to lock, to pick this like 6-pin cylinder, like super tight lock. Sweating bullets. I'm like, I'm going to stay here until tomorrow, and this is going to be embarrassing. I'm going to be a puddle of sweat. This is horrible. Why am I doing this? I started doubting my whole career path, life choices. I was on the phone after 4 or 5 minutes with my contact at the company, starting to play out, like, how am I going to explain that I need someone to get back to the office, get up all the way to the 14th floor, and unlock me from the conference room I was supposed to break into so I can go back home and start writing the report. As I'm on the phone, it was literally within my last shreds of dignity, I managed to unlock this monstrous, which is now, I realize, a piece of shit lock. Make some fake ass excuses on the phone, and drag myself and my shattered dignity back home, understanding that this thing is either never going to work again, and I'm not dealing with red teaming ever again, or I'm going to have to get a little better at this and get some more practice. Fast forward 4 or 5 years. This is from one of the red team classes that Chris and I gave in Colombia. This was the first red team class we gave. And these are Colombian schoolgirls that go to a American school, really fancy neighborhoods, really rich families. They were our translators. They weren't even doing anything. They were our translators for the class, and we were teaching them how to pick locks. 10 minutes later, our security detail, which we invited inside because they were going oh, what are you guys doing? They didn't speak a word of English. We're hand-waving them inside. Our security detail is working on locks. The schoolgirls are teaching them how to pick themselves out of their own handcuffs. We wouldn't have gotten here if I didn't end up locked up in that office building 5 or 6 years earlier, contemplating life choices and considering changing jobs maybe because this is horrible and I suck at it and I failed. If you have any idea what is it to pick locks, and I highly encourage you to do so, 45 minutes working on a lock, I can't believe I did it back at the time. I was I didn't have my choice, but it was a colossal failure. And that's one of the best experiences that I've had that kept me driving forward and kind of expand my horizons into, more and more and more into the physical security side of things. Look for the signal in the quiet. So I mentioned our hacker heroes before and our kind of industry leaders. And as you'll note, there's a lot of noise that these guys are making. There's a reason why almost every hand was raised here when I asked who's the guy on the left. That's Kevin Mitnick, again. Media hero. He's everywhere. Everyone knows his name. He goes on TV. He gets paid thousands of dollars to speak at conferences. He's running some shady businesses, doing some shady stuff done by other people, but a lot of noise. Shimamura, no one's heard about him. I had to almost go one by one until the guy at literally the back of the room was oh, it's Shimamura. No one heard about him because there's no noise. But there's a lot of signal. And it's really key to try to pick up the signal in the quietness. Look for the guys who are not putting themselves out there, who don't have thousands and tens of thousands of followers on Twitter, who are not on every freaking stage, on every freaking security conference. Look for the guys that are putting themselves out there. Maybe have a little Git repo, maybe make it to a small conference. Look for these guys. This is HD Moore on the right and Spoonam on the left. For those of you who don't know, they wrote Metasploit. Anyone knows Metasploit? Yes, of course. Metasploit was a shitty program. I know. I've been there at Black Hat 2012? No, 2000 and what? I wrote it down here. 2004. Oh my God, I'm getting old. I couldn't find pictures from Black Hat for some reason. So this is their DEF CON talk the same year when they released Metasploit for the first time. It was written in Perl. Now, again, I'm old enough to be able to hold on and do something functional in Perl. I'm betting you, if any of the young kids here understand what we used to do in Perl, they would just go like, oh, that is horrible. That is the absolutely wrong way to do anything related to computing. So they wrote this thing, this project in Perl in 2004. Horrible. But you know what? It kind of worked. It worked like in a hacker way. It's, for the 4 or 5 things that it was supposed to do, it did. It did it horribly, but okay. They are brave enough to understand this is shitty, we need to fix it. We failed. Complete rewrite. Not like complete rewrite, you know what, let's pretty up the Perl code, let's make it more effective, let's document it. Complete rewrite as in, let's change languages. Let's change platforms. And took all the hackish stuff, translated it into Ruby, built a new framework in 2007, and up to this day, without that initial failure, we wouldn't have proper Metasploit modules and interactions and interpreters and all the fun things that came afterwards. Initially, Metasploit didn't have an interpreter. It's like you create a payload, send it out, bam, done. Now we have all those frameworks because of that initial failure, because they wanted more and they weren't happy with what they had, but they had to fail. And there's no way that Metasploit would have gotten there. And think about all the other talks that were out there at Black Hat. I was just fortunate enough to be in the room because I couldn't get to the other talks because they're packed, they're full. And the only reason I know HD and Spoon and know Metasploit, it was because I couldn't get to the popular talks at Black Hat. I was like, you know what? Let's sit in this thing. These kids can probably teach me something. And they did. And I was like a fanboy. And it just worked. But without that failure, without going on a limb, without me by luck, now I look for speakers that I was just talking about this with Chris yesterday. And I was telling him, look, I think BSides Barcelona is going to be awesome. I know none of the speakers. I'm super excited to hear what they have to say because, there's no noise. It's going to be all signal. And we're sitting, over dinner last night, and I was like getting giddy on everyone that introduced themselves. It's like, I'm talking about this. I was like, yes, I have no idea what this is. I have done no work on that. This is super interesting. I'm going to learn something new, finally, this week. Be able to pick up those ideas. And even, you know what? I guarantee you, one of the talks here is going to be about something that really didn't work, or that's not going to work for you. But if you can pick up a couple of ideas from that, that is going to be the best success that you'll have here. Turn into the community. Don't try to look for... Again, this is about making out the signal from the noise. Turn to the community because the talent is here. This is literally why we're here. Because I know, and Chris knows, and everyone knows, I've been to Barcelona many, many times before. There were security conferences and hacker conferences in Barcelona. I know, I was there. I was speaking there. And then they're gone. And this is exactly what I was telling the guys. I know that the community is here. I mean, no, they couldn't have all just left within the past 5, 6, 10 years. Turn to the community, and this is the literal proof that it can happen, that the community is here, the talent is here, the content is here, the money is here, everything is here. This is where you can find the signal. You don't have to look for the noise that everyone else is making. If you look at the big conferences, the Black Hats, the RSAs, try to look behind the scenes and understand how they work. Black Hat submissions and talks are due almost a year before the event. Sorry, RSA. The Black Hat submissions, they're designed to create media buzz. People are releasing research specifically to get into Black Hat. It doesn't make any sense. Why would you sit on information, on data, on research, where you could have shared it, you could have iterated over it, you could have failed, and made it better and better and better, and eventually make it to the next Black Hat. Or, you know what, who gives a shit about Black Hat? Go to BSides. I might be a little biased, but most conferences run once a year. Do you really think that there's innovation that gets published only once a year? Screw those big conferences. Have a BSides. Have a Barcelona hackerspace. You know, the Barcelona cybersecurity thing. You meet every month. I've been there. And it's amazing. And you can get content. Talk about it. Fail over it. Show stuff that's incomplete. Show stuff that, you know what, shouldn't make it to like a Black Hat or a BSides. Show stuff still in work so you can iterate and successfully fail so you can get to that final submission. Tune out the noise. This is the most difficult part. Social media is oh God, I love social media. It's great for some things. I have to say something positive, but it's a dumpster fire for most other things. It's filled with emotions. People are very easily detached with humanity when they go onto social media. They turn into horrible people, and they're spewing out. It's a dumpster fire. Tune it out. Learn how to utilize social media to your needs. I'm using it purely to either troll my friends and get horrible things out of them, or use it for marketing. For myself, for my company, for things that I want to promote, and that's it. It's not about family, it's not about friends, it's nothing. If I need to call my friends, I'm like DMing or, you know, other things. I don't care about checking into places, taking pictures of food, you know, commenting on politics, again, unless it's trolling my friends. Tune out the noise, try to find the quiet ones on social media. The ones who post, you know, oh, I've updated something on my GitHub. I have a problem with this. This doesn't work for me. Can anyone help me? Anyone wants to pitch in on a project? Look for those. It's really hard because they're surrounded by Last but not least, I think I'm good on time, right? You're not freaking out yet. You're not sweating, so I'm going to keep going. Last but not least, and this is the most important message I think that I have. Noob it out. We're all learning things. I mean, today, in the last couple of days, I threw a little conference, you know, in our company, and I learned new things because my staff and my colleagues and my peers stepped up and put up content and made a big thing. And I was like, this is interesting. I'm still learning. I mean, if I were to get to a point where I would be like, you know what, I'm good. I think I am a professional now. You know those? No, sorry. I think I'm an expert. I am a cybersecurity expert. Call me out. Because that's the point where my career is done. Literally. There is no way to become an expert in this industry. And I'm willing to fight, like physically fight anyone who says otherwise. Or at least get someone to fight for me. But understand and embrace this noobness. It is an amazing energy that keeps me going. Again, I'm excited. This is the 498th B-side event that is thrown worldwide since this guy here started it 11 years ago because he was pissed at something. And we participated in it, and we learned, and we still learn. And I'm as excited to stand here on stage and clear this area of bullshit and let the real people who are doing work talk about what they're doing. Because I understand, and as I said earlier, like last night, I was giddy understanding that I'm going to learn new things that I have no idea about. But unless you get to that, unless you embrace that state of mind, I'm a noob. If I try to touch this, I'm going to fail so badly, but it's going to be so much fun. And that's the only way it's going to get better. So with that, I just want you to recognize that, first of all, the bravery of everyone standing here. I mean, I'm almost done. I'm ready to go. It takes a lot. and to come up with content and not just like fancy words and talk about, oh, you should be brave and fail and motivational speaker is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So embrace that, recognize it, and step on that stage. It is scary as hell. It's not for everyone, but it is so rewarding because it gives you so much feedback and it connects you with other people and it enables them to connect with you. And that's the only way that really successful projects and really successful code hacks people end up together. Thank you. Comments? This is not like a questions talk, but I'm happy to answer anything that someone might have. Nothing? It's too early. Oh, there we go. Yes.
Of red teaming.
Red team testing?
Yeah, what is that?
Oh my God. How much time do we have? Red team testing, in a nutshell, is full adversarial simulation. Are you familiar with pen testing? Good. It's not pen testing. Think pen testing, but in the real world. No scope, no limitations, no rules, and as a red teamer, you have one task, which is to simulate a certain adversary. Whether it's a script kiddie, or a professional hacker, or a competitor, or a nation state, you are tasked with assuming that role and being able to subject your target with everything that that adversary has in play. From a technical perspective, from a knowledge perspective, from a threat intelligence and intelligence gathering perspective, from a physical security, social engineering, accessibility, everything. No rules, no scope, everything's in play. Your target is the company. It's the business assets. It is not an IP address, it is not a URL, it's not a database, it's not a computer. That's, in a nutshell, and correct me if I'm wrong, red team testing. Do all the things, yes. More questions? Yeah, go ahead.
No?
Yeah.
So what would you consider your biggest failure that has helped you the most?
It's funny. So the couple of slides that I added this morning, and I was talking about on the way here, that this is awesome. We're using Google Slides, so I can make edits until the last minute, and they're automatically synced. This is my latest, but the slide that I actually added there, I added 2 slides, to be honest. One that talks about someone else's failure, which again, you learn a lot from. So last night, if you don't know, the 4th nation that landed on the moon was supposed to successfully land on the moon. I know one of the guys that started this. Israel had its lunar lander, or not lander, faller, get to the moon, crash into it because they had some failure along the way. Again, failure. The second slide, and I was all about, like, this is a colossal failure. It is amazing. There were the 6th or 7th nation to put something around the moon, and the 4th one to put something on it. I'm not going to say land because it made contact with the lunar ground. The live stream said last night, as I was like, fuck. But it's an amazing endeavor, and they failed so successfully. And now the media is filled with, like, kids are inspired. Kids want to go and learn science and math, and we're just talking. I was like, oh, let's do the math on something that no one has ever done before at that scale in gravity that we cannot simulate here. My personal favorite failures are not professional per se. And that was the other slide. I had like 3. So picture this. Picture 3 like Facebook profiles, the default ones. And I want to talk about learning from the 3 worst managers that I ever worked under. Horrible. Atrocious. And Chris knows some of them because I was bitching and whining, and it's like, it's horrible, but I'm at it because I think I can do something here. And in hindsight, which is always easy, I learned the most about running companies, managing people, managing resources, projects, all of that stuff from those people. Because they were absolutely shit at it. Horrible. Horrible. Horrible to a point like that should be a prosecutable offense. That has been my personal favorite. Again, and it's about sticking it out and making sure that you get that experience. I know it sounds super counterintuitive. I know that most people, like millennials, are like, if I don't like my job, I'm going to quit. I was like, really? How privileged of you. No, stick it out. There's a lot to learn from shitty jobs and shitty environments and managers. Truthfully, the best management lessons from there. I didn't learn anything from running a successful organization. I learned some, but most of it was through that. Lockpicking again, probably on a personal note, one of the worst ones. I had a major project that, again, completely failed. That forced me to create a new attack vector. Back at the time, I think I talked about it back at the cybersecurity meetup, where we just could not complete the job, and I had to find a way to exfiltrate data, and I ended up creating a hodgepodge of hopping techniques and exfiltrate it over voice over IP. Again, that's the cool story, and the data comes out. But what preceded that was a horrible failure, and what I neglected to tell you was the initial report that we had to send them that basically offered a full refund because we sucked. But we stuck it out, and I was like, that sucks. I don't care about the money, but I can't go back and say that I failed an engagement. And it was a disastrous failure. I mean, we literally forgot the money. It's done. But leaving it off without the ability to say that I got something, can't do it. Other questions? Awesome. All right. Thank you so much.